on this computer. Perfect. Hello, Bjorn. Thank you so much for joining us today. How have you been?
How are you? It's good to see you, Angie.
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for kind of joining us today. I have been such a big fan of your wine, and I figure even though we can't get together this year, it would be nice to get online and do a video because I know a few years back I had the pleasure to visit your vineyard, which is pretty much your house, and did a video there and really got to understand what it is that you do. But for a lot of the people who's just tuning in for the first time, I just wanted to say hi, I'm Angie from Angie Sum. I'm a small local online wine retailer and I specialize in wines that you won't find in Costco, Safeway, Bedmo. I'm looking for wines that has a story, that's smaller producer, that provides higher quality and more value than what you're paying for. And Bjorn definitely fits that that little thing perfectly. So I'm so happy to have him today. So Bjorn, can you tell us a little bit about your background, where you come from, and how you got into winemaking and all that good stuff?
Well, I guess I've been around food and wine pretty much my whole life growing up in the Napa Valley. And I think I was interested in food and cooking more than wine when I was younger. And then as I became older, that sort of piqued my interest. I think my biggest influence, or maybe my most, the biggest event that influenced me to get into wine was in 1990. I had an experience in France where I was able to work a harvest there, and I stayed for a while and with a family, and the food and wine experience was incredible, and I'd say that was probably my biggest influence. But like I said, you know, I grew up in St. Helena, and many friends had vineyard properties, and I was exposed to winemaking experiences young.
Nice.
So
Wow.
that's kind of how.
Where were you in France when you did the year of harvesting and all that stuff?
In Champagne.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool.
I have a very good family friend there, and we're still friends. We stay in contact, and it's been a great. He's been a great friendship and a big influence to me.
Wow. So how did you, what was your first step into winemaking here in Napa then? Like how did you start it and where were you at the time, and tell us all about it.
Yeah, well, so I suppose my first experiences winemaking here in the valley were with at friends' wineries.
Mm-hmm.
I still make wine today at Chris Corley's winery, and I've known Chris since 7th grade. And many friends that I have been able to make wine with, and that's been part of just an ongoing history. As far as the property, my parents purchased that property in the 70s,
Oh, wow.
Howell Mountain, and I think the first vineyards were put in 2002, 2003. And I think the first production of the Bjorn label was in 2006.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. That's so like, so were you the one who put in the vineyard, or was it your parents who wanted to put in the vineyard?
No, it was really my project. I asked my parents about it, and they agreed, and it was completely my project. And I cut down the trees and prepped the land and installed the vineyards. Obviously, not all by myself. That's impossible.
Right.
But I was there through the whole process, and it was something that I wanted to do. It was not somebody else it wasn't somebody else's project. It was a dream of mine.
That's amazing. I mean, I actually, it's not an easy place to find. Bjorn's Winery is still your home, right? That you live on property, if that's still correct?
I do, yeah. And I think that vineyards that are farmed by somebody that lives there are always of a little higher quality because there's somebody that's there. It's in your backyard. It's more personal,
I
and it's
remember. Yeah.
easier to control
I
than
uh-huh.
projects that are remote.
I think it's such a special experience when I went and visited. It was Bjorn's house. Their whole family was there. Literally, you just step into their backyard, and there's a vineyard, and he literally knows every single road because he lives there. And it's so funny because I remember telling a story. First of all, if I mean, again, it's not a place where it's open to public. You just go like a big tourist group. It's not one of those places. But if you ever have a chance to go there, you will understand, I feel like, the beauty of Howell Mountain, because it's not an easy place to plant vineyard, to harvest. I remember being a pretty big slope, and there's lots of trees overgrown, so it's a huge project. It's not like the valley floor where you can just plug in a vine. You have to like get rid of the tree, do the vine, everything has to be done by hand. It seems like a daunting task, and that's why you guys only had a couple acres under vine. Is that correct? If you can.
Yeah, that's right. It's the property overall, I think, is 68 acres,
Oh
and
wow.
we're really only farming like 3 acres uh, currently.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and it just wouldn't be feasible to farm a huge amount of that land because the land just doesn't lend itself to that. It's steep, it's challenging. Access would be a problem,
Yes.
and it's really not our intent to do that. But we love the forest that surrounds the vineyard and that we are fortunate to live in. And I believe that the forest and the ecology really influences uh, the 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 farming.
Mm.
Uh, and I think the fruit intensity and the site are unique. And if the forest wasn't what it is, I believe that the fruit wouldn't be what it is as well.
That is amazing. And I also remember the story like you told of the bear that will try to cross the fence to get to the fruits or something like that. It's amazing because he lives there, so he knows like you probably have name for all the bears, like you know all the deer that come soon. I thought that was like the most amazing thing.
I don't know them all, but I tell you, we have one currently. So because of the fires, we've had a lot of the animals that have been pushed into our forest from the surrounding area, and it's okay. We'll get along, you know.
Yes. I remember being really worried since you talk about the fire.
They need somewhere to be for a little while too.
That's very true. That's very true. So was any of your property damaged at all with the 2020? Or I mean, there's pretty much a fire every single year now. So has any of that affected your vineyard recently?
So we were very fortunate in that our property and our vineyards were not damaged. The fire came quite close to us, but we were unaffected. Many neighbors and many people have lost everything, and incredible need for us all to understand how serious and how devastating the fires were.
Yes.
As far as the wine quality, that's yet to be determined. It's the 2020 is obviously in barrel now. We have not been able to detect just by tasting or smelling any of these smoke qualities, but that does not mean that they will not show up later.
Oh,
So we won't know right away what the effect is.
oh wow.
And there was significant smoke in the area as opposed to 2017, where 2017, most of the grapes were picked before the fires.
Yes.
So we picked on my birthday, which was October the 2nd in
Wow. Uh-huh.
17, and the
Yes.
fire started until October the 8th.
Yes, I remember because the fire started on my husband's birthday, And it was a day after we went to one of our best friends' wedding in Sonoma. And it was usually perfect and beautiful. That's why they booked this random barn in Sonoma. But on their wedding day, the day before the fire, it was super windy. They literally can't do any of the outdoor stuff. Like our hair is being blown out. It's all this crazy stuff. And they were like, we've been here 4 times. It's never like this. So it was one of those freak, crazy thing that we all remember because we were around too.
Well, we're all getting accustomed to these strange weather events that seem to be more and more common. And these fires, as you say, are every year.
Yeah.
And not to focus too much on that, but yeah, it seems to be something that's occurring more and more often, and they are devastating.
All right. Well, I will keep my fingers crossed for your 2020 not to have any smoke tan, and I'm so glad that your property was not damaged by it at all. And ooh, I like the background. There's a bottle of wine.
Excuse me, sorry.
Oh, okay. So I do also wanted to kind of understand the backstory. When you started, once after you planted your vineyard and when you started making the wine, was it ever your intention? Like, what was your intention with the wine? Did you ever want to, like, because I heard story, Lab, it could have been you originally just made it for close friends and family. You weren't really trying to sell that much of it. Like, what was the real story, if you can share?
You know, everything in life, I feel that's good sort of starts from emotion and from if it starts. So for me personally, it didn't start out as me thinking that I was going to make some great business or going to make a bunch of money, or I wanted to do something on that property to be able to live there and be able to farm. And I didn't want to just farm grapes to make wine and to make money. I also wanted to make to farm fruit trees and to have chickens and to have a more all-encompassing approach to living in a natural setting there, and kind of that sort of a life. And wine and food go hand in hand, and growing up with that, one lends itself to the other, and so it is, and so where we are today.
Nice. So, I mean, you guys have not upped the production for Bjorn pretty much ever since it started. Is it still hovering around 200-ish cases per year, or what's the production like for the Bjorn?
Yeah. So 200 to 300.
Yes.
Depends on the year, but we haven't planted any more vines since the beginning, and so depending on the year, it's just whatever the vineyard yields.
That's amazing. And wait, so I have to talk about my backstory because I probably told Bjorn this a couple times already, but for those of you again just tuning in or just learning about Bjorn for the first time, this is a winery. I love the story for myself because the first time when I saw his label, it was at the end of a huge Cabernet tasting lineup. So we're talking about tasting 60, 70 different Cabernet. And at the very end, we have this Bjorn. And I remember looking at the label and I go, this is very simple. It literally just a yellow label with Bjorn. And I go, and you know, they say you should never judge a book by its label or judge a wine by its label, but I will admit I definitely judged it by the label. I was just like, it can't be that special. And you have to understand, after 70 caps, your palate start getting a little tired and you think they're all the same. Nothing can really impress you. And then I tasted the Bjorn and I was like, wow, holy crap, excuse my language. I was like, this is really good. It's very well structured. It's not over the top, like jammy, rambly. It's very well balanced with the oak and the flavor and the complexity and the mineral, because a lot of the California Cab has no mineral sense to it anymore. I just remember loving the wine a lot. And then when I find out how much it was per bottle, because then as soon as you taste it, it's a label you haven't had before, you start putting a price point in your head of thinking how much it will be. And I was thinking, I put this around $125 to $150 a bottle at a time, especially being one of the last cab. They usually line it up by price point too. And when I was told this was just an $85 bottle cap, I was absolutely blown away. And I had to meet the guy behind the label. And I heard great story about you before I ever met you. I think prior to that, I was working for a retailer where the buyer's name was Brian, and I was good friends of you at yours at the time. They had similar beer going on, similar great personalities, and they
Thanks,
just
Brian.
told, yeah, they told me about Bjorn. They go, he's a really nice guy. He's not one of your fancy schmancy winemaker that's like dressed in suit. He's a farmer. He's down to earth. You're gonna love him. And I got a chance to meet him. I have to say, I do absolutely love the wine and everything. So you have to tell us the secret. What is it that you do in this wine that make this wine so good? Oh, and I probably told you this before too, but I like to tell you again. Ever since I know you, I promoted wine in the retail shop I was at, but then when I started my own business, I promoted your wine every single year after that. And many times, especially prior to the pandemic, I did a lot of in-person tasting, and people love their cabs. So I always love to do blind tastings with Cabernets, single blind. So they will know 6, 7, 8 different wines I'm pouring, but they won't know in what order. And your Cabernet almost every single time comes on top, or if not second from the top. And we're talking about, I'm putting you against other Cabernet that's 150 up to $200 a bottle, and your cab will always kick their butts, like every single time I do it. Top 1 or 2. So you're gonna have to tell us your secret.
So you asked me what the secret is, and
Yes.
you said, what is it that I do?
Yeah.
And to be honest, the answer is I don't do much.
Nice.
The secret is the site. The secret is the site. So I am very fortunate to live next to that site, and it's a beautiful site, and we have great soils, and we have spring water that's wonderful. And as far as the winemaking, we try to be as gentle as possible and not go crazy with additions or manipulations or gentle management of that fruit through the winemaking process is the best way to allow the expression of that site. That's my philosophy.
So when you talk about gentle, does that mean you don't do any pump over? You do like a gentle punch down, or like you don't use a lot of oak? Like what do you mean when you say when you say gentle?
Yeah, so I feel like we don't need to look for extreme extraction of tannin, or we really, I think anywhere on Howell Mountain has intense enough fruit and big enough tannin and bold enough flavor that you really don't need to try to extract more than what will come just with the standard punch downs and gentle pump overs, just to wet the cap and to lend itself to your standard winemaking practice. I really don't think you need to use enzymes and modern wine additions or manipulations to extract more than what's there.
That's amazing. I love it. How about oak? Because I know you did both a little American and French. Or what is your oak treatment like for the 2017 vintage then?
So I used to use. I've changed through the years. As any cook cooking does, right? Sometimes you decide that you taste something and you say, "Oh, I wish I had done a little more of that or a little less of that." And I think starting out, I used more American oak than French oak, and now I use exclusively French oak.
I love that. Okay.
And uh, less oak than I used to. I used to do maybe 40%. Depends on the vintage, really, because like in a year like 2011, we used much more oak, and in a year like 2010, it needed more oak. In a year like 2012, or say 2017 here, this is a very large wine. I just felt like we didn't need as much oak.
So tell me a little bit about 2017 for your wine, if you don't mind, because I mean I know the 16 got ridiculously amazing review from all
Can you
over.
say, I
Oh,
missed that?
okay. Can you tell me a little more about the 2017 vintage? Because I understand that 2016 was very highly rated, pretty much from all the wine critics or from all over Napa. 2017 doesn't seem like it's getting as much love as the 16 from the critics. So can you tell me a little bit just about your wine in the 17 vintage?
So I think 2017 is going to be harder to understand. It's going to take longer to come around because it's a much bigger wine. I think 2016 is softer and approachable, younger. 2017, so because of the heat in 17 and because of the vigor of the vineyard due to the wet spring and the wet winter, I think we really did have a rebound in growth in the vineyard. And I think what precipitated out of all of that was a bigger wine. It's just it's got bigger shoulders. It's got in every way, in every characteristic. It's just a much bigger wine, and I think it's going to take a little longer in bottle to understand fully. But I really believe that there's a beautiful wine underlying some of the rough edges on the 17 vintage, and I believe it's going to be one of those vintages that ages well
I love
for
that. Yeah.
years.
This is the kind of thing that gets me really excited because I feel like a lot of the time our consumer cultures, we want it now, we want to open the wine now, we lose the art and the beauty of aging wine and getting that secondary aroma, letting the tannins and everything kind of come to its own. And in fact, I actually lean towards the wine that needs a little more time, like the 17 over the 16, because history had taught us some of those really big overblown vintage, like the 2007 and 97. They don't age quite as well as their counterpart vintage that was quote unquote a little shitted on by the critic in the beginning, like the 98 that's drinking amazing now compared to the 97, and the '07, the few I opened, I just felt like they're a little tired. So I'm excited about 17 vintage, and I think this is something that you can hold while drinking the 16. Would that be a correct assumption?
That's absolutely correct. Yes.
Amazing. Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
I believe,
uh-huh.
and I believe the acid profile in 17 is very vertical.
Nice.
Um, that is going to also help the wine to age.
I'm excited about that. At least if you were my client already and you see my video before, I've been like continuously drilling into all my clients and friends and whoever will listen that acid is the backbone of winemaking. So I'd rather a wine have higher acid than not enough. So I'm very excited about this vintage. But with that being said, I still feel like the Bjorn at about $85 a bottle is some of the best value Cabernet you can find. I recommend it for people when they're gifting gift all the time. I actually saw a whole case too for a client who's giving gift to their friends because one, they're not going to be able to find it at Safeway or Costco or anywhere else. It would be something truly special. It won't be like, oh yeah, I had this last week. And two, when they open it, they're going to be really shocked and surprised, and the quality, the wine's going to taste like $150 bottle of wine when it's only $85 a bottle of wine that my friend spent to gift on, which is another thing I'm super impressed with you because I always felt, and I've been telling you this for like a few years, that, oh my God, I'm impressed how low you're pricing your wine because it could easily be a higher price point, and I'm always humbled by your love for the land and just wanting to share the wines and with people, and you want to keep the wine affordable because I remember you telling me that you believe that some of the Napa wines are way overpriced and you wanted to continue to keep it in an affordable price range for the people who truly love to drink wine. Like, is that correct, or you speak to that a little more?
I always try to add value or maintain value. I want everybody to feel like everything that I do, it has some value in it. And aggressively pricing things has not ever been my style. It's not my desire. I don't need a jet airplane. It's not.
Well,
Those
if you've
never
been
mind.
to his house and you walk into his backyard, you won't need a jet airplane. That's like everything you ever want out there. In fact, when I went to visit him, sorry, I'm gonna do another side story. Bjorn also does his own. He also has a mini distillery on his property. So you make your own brandy or with it or whatever have you, some kind of hard alcohol moonshine. I can't remember.
No, we're not allowed to talk about that,
Oh,
Angie.
wait, I'm sorry. Don't need to edit this one out. I just remember saying if there's a zombie apocalypse, I'm running to his house because they got wine, they got good food, they're like in high elevation, spring water, and they got this still alcohol. So I was like, I'm going to his house. Yeah. But with that being said, I also want to briefly touch on, I do actually promote this from time to time. You also have a very approachable kind of like everyday pricing brand called the 12 gauge cap and 12 gauge Chardonnay. Can you tell us a little bit about this wine?
So that was a fun project that I did with, well, I still do with a friend of mine, and we love to hunt and fish together, and that's where the label comes from. And we decided that we were going to make some everyday table wine that was good quality and targeted towards sportsmen.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where that label came from, and it started out as kind of a joke, actually, and just like a fun, free-spirited project. And now we do quite a bit of it, and obviously with the gun label, even though we don't promote violence, this is about hunting, right? So our labels were designed towards sportsmen, towards hunters and fishermen, and sometimes it's misconceived or in the modern day today. But anyway, with that said, that's where that label comes from, and we like to put out standard, true to varietal wines that are entry level wines, but they're very nice table wines, and the quality for the price we feel is exceptional, and that's the nature behind that brand.
And I absolutely agree with that too. It just, yes, you're 100% like right on the news. Every time I promote the wine, sometimes people do get the wrong ideas thinking it's gun related. And of course, once you tell a story, they're like, and once they know, oh my God, it's made by the same guy who made by Bjorn, they're always willing to try it. And once you open the bottle, people are always blown away for how much you're paying for it and what you're getting out of it. Again, it's so like, I feel like Bjorn is the type of guy who like to under promise and over deliver. He always kind of hide in disguise, like very simple label, like very unassuming. And but once you try it, you're gonna be like, oh my God, where have you been all my life? Type of thing. So thank you for doing this amazing job on both of the labels, actually. Yeah.
Angie, I can't wait for you to come and visit again. That was fun.
Yeah. One of these days when the pandemic is over.
Through this whole COVID thing,
Yes.
and everybody feels comfortable socializing again,
Mm-hmm.
I really would like you to come and visit.
I would definitely love to come and visit again. Now, with that being said, I wanted to thank any and everyone who watched this video. If you're interested in trying this, again, this is a very small production. We're talking about less than 300 cases produced each year at an amazing price for the value. I'm going to have a link underneath to purchase all of these wines, and I'll also include a link of the previous video I did on Bjorn's property with drones, so you'll see a really awesome aerial image of how his vineyard looked like and how it's completely surrounded by forest and how beautiful the land is, and you'll understand that this is truly a work of art, and it's definitely far from what you see now a lot of time now in Napa, like very big commercialized, like trying to pin the last buck out of your pocket type of winemaking I see too often. So there's a very special place in my heart for wines like this and made by people like Bjorn. So thank you very much for watching, and thank you so much, Bjorn, for taking the time out of your busy days to join us and doing this quick interview with us. And I hope you stay safe.
Hey, thank you, Angie.
All right. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye. All right.